Hey, Austin, welcome to Mitiga Mic.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm happy to be here.
So let's start off, man. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, for sure. Of course, my name is Austin, and I do incident response work here at Mitiga. I am a principal incident responder, and we especially focus on cloud-based incident response using our platform that allows us to do a deep dive into any types of cloud evidence and really streamline the cloud investigation process.
Awesome. And when we first met, you were telling me you've been into computers forever, but you've been into security. It sounds like since like maybe was it middle school
Oh
or
yeah.
what was it? You were actually like the IT administrator or something like that for your high
Yeah.
school?
Yeah, exactly. So my middle school teacher, she made jokes about me typing faster than her. And she was like, you clearly must never go outside or something like that. So I've basically just always loved computers, and I especially grew fond of cybersecurity
Yeah.
around roughly around my middle school, late middle school, early high school times. Somebody actually had stolen one of my online game accounts. That was my best friend by installing a keystroke logger on my
Oh,
system.
nice.
So yeah,
Nice.
I was like, "Hey, buddy, I'm gonna go to the bathroom." They installed the key logger on my
Those are the
machine,
best
and
kinds of friends that install
exactly,
keyloggers when you go to the bathroom, right?
exactly, yeah. So like, jokes on him. He ended up stealing all my gold coins, but now I like do cybersecurity work, so he shaped my career a
Oh,
little
there
bit.
you go. Well,
Exactly.
awesome.
So
Well,
yeah. So
you did some research recently that I thought was really exciting that I wanted to talk to you about today. It was around browser in the middle attacks. And maybe before you get into this attack, you can say a little bit about what's the difference or juxtaposition between browser in the middle and traditional man in the middle attacks that I think probably most people listening to this are probably somewhat familiar with, but maybe you can kind of share that just so we can kind of frame it before we dive in.
yeah, absolutely. So the thing I always love to look at is the OSI model that just breaks down, whether things are like at the application level or network layer, et cetera. So one thing that differentiates man-in-the-middle attacks versus like browser-in-the-middle attacks is that man-in-the-middle attack focuses very much more so on the network level. So you're really targeting the network layer of intercepting packets or intercepting that network information, where a browser in the middle attack is especially focused around the application, and it allows an attacker to really inject and get inside of the browser to get access to like browser passwords or sessions so they can then steal access into, for example, an enterprise M365 account. So from there, as you can imagine, that's quite powerful because once a threat actor basically gets into a browser and steals that session, now anything that lives within that session,
Mhm.
that threat actor can now start loading or accessing. So that
Now,
quite
is this does this work across, Safari, Edge, Chrome, and will it work on a Mac, a Windows laptop, or even from an iPhone, for example?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
well,
So
okay.
this would work on any browser, especially any browser that accepts plugins or any types of extensions. So anywhere that an extension can be installed, this will work. In addition to it as well, any way that a threat actor could get JavaScript to execute in the browser, the browser could then run that JavaScript and, for example, take cookies and send them out. An old school method for this is called a cookie jar attack, where you basically take somebody's cookies and you're getting into their cookie jar is kind of the old school methodology to it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's funny. So I live in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, and I remember years ago, God, it might have been decades ago, right when Java was kind of hitting its stride, and Sun Microsystems was pushing it out. And again, this is early days, and there was this room of security folks, and they were talking about, yeah, and Java's amazing because it operates in a sandbox, so there'll never be attacks related to it. And you just heard everybody in the audience is like, "What? What? There's no way that's going to be true." And sure enough, it
Exactly.
wasn't true.
Yeah,
But
exactly. That turned into to be like one of the biggest security nightmares. I
that's
remember
like,
when people were talking about like throwing Flash, like Adobe Flash
oh,
out. Like I think at the same time there was a question like, well, do we keep Java though, like Java web apps or not?
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
they've really been just renowned for those, having security issues, that have really surfaced time and time again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we've got the theory, right? And it makes sense. I think it's really intuitive. But you've been really steeped into this, so you know about some real world examples. So share some, what's happening. Well, how are people leveraging this?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So one way that people have leveraged this is they have specifically targeted M365 accounts, for example. So one way that that's been leveraged in the past is threat actors will essentially trick somebody into downloading an extension, and once that extension is installed, then in theory, this extension can really just wait for the user to be logged into their M365 account with a valid session and then go ahead and take ultimately their token and get into the session that way. So one of the things that's really cool that we have within Mitiga, the platform, is we've got detections around authentication using these specific session tokens,
Mm,
and especially like doing, for example, suspicious calls to the Microsoft Graph API. And if there's, for example, somebody that is doing authentication from a new IP address and now is interacting with the Microsoft Graph API, that will trigger a detection in our platform
sure.
that basically would allow you to have a detection of a browser in the middle attack. Because basically all that somebody would be doing in a browser in the middle attack is really intercepting or stealing somebody's session. And so from us being able to see that Microsoft Graph API call from a new IP, a new user agent, all this different metadata that we have across our data lake, that gives us insights into like, hey, somebody just definitely stole one of your employees' accounts, and now we immediately would kick into action to go ahead and protect an
Yeah.
organization. So
Well,
we
and I know
definitely
it.
have seen that.
Yeah, for sure. And I know it differs by vendor. And then sometimes you can make configuration changes, but do you know what the default is? So if I hijacked your Microsoft 365 session, I've got your tokens and I'm working away at it and you leave. Now, can days go by, weeks go by, months go by? How long do I keep that sessionized token information?
Yes, exactly. So that's a perfect question. Usually, when people are logging into their accounts, there is that checkbox that says "Keep me signed in,"
Yeah.
and a lot of people do not like re-logging in. So it's very common for the typical end user to go ahead and just tick that box to basically go ahead and stay logged in. So the default time frame, I'm trying to remember it. It's not on the top of my mind, but I will say a lot of times organizations will adjust that threshold of how long sessions are basically valid, and they'll try to shorten that to align more so with like the principles of zero trust. Like with zero trust, it's like we're not going to trust your device.
Sure.
And so we want to basically time everything out as quickly as we can. So like in a perfect zero trust world, you would be prompted like every minute, like, yes, it's still me. Yes, it's still me. So that way, if somebody did really, intercept your session, they've got something valid for like 1 minute. It's a lot harder to steal all your email inbox in 1 minute than it is, of course, in like an hour or something like that for that
Yeah.
session duration.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I don't know what that default number is in terms of how long a session is valid for. And it mainly because each enterprise is a little bit different with like how long they tolerate or kind of accept those session
I think
durations.
would you say it's fair though to say it's generally like weeks to months and it's not like
Yeah,
hours? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I see that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I can definitely search up really fast too and get the
It's
information. Like,
just such
wow.
a powerful and sort of, cloaked way of getting that information because the user's not going to know at all, right? And the
Exactly.
organization, unless they're leveraging a solution like Mitiga, right, that has these detections that could pull it up. This is just one of those great ways to, maintain persistence and evade detection with really such a simple type of attack, right?
Yeah.
I would say, and not to degrade the complexity of what goes into it. Simple in terms of its execution once it's been built out, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I do have an answer here for you too.
okay. Yeah.
So in terms of like an Office desktop app, that looks like typically the average there is 90 days that people have their tokens timeout. That being said, a refresh token expires in 90 days. So back to your point too, there is like if somebody gets your refresh token, you're like, over that course of 3 months there you are at the mercy of a threat actor with those default settings there.
Yeah.
And then in terms of web apps, I believe that those will default to timing out and basically re-verifying your identity after a duration of inactivity. And that's usually 6 hours. But again, if you're hitting that keep me signed in or, remember me, that
Yeah.
just skips all that. So it's
Yeah.
really just like once the threat actor gets your session two, they can now then keep that active as well. So that inactivity window goes away if there's no detection there. So that, having those key detections that we have in our platform, I know there's other platforms that have those detections as well, but ours are a little bit more unique in the sense that we are constantly looking out for the latest and the newest ways that we are seeing a cloud instance kick off. For example, in some cases where Microsoft 365 identities are compromised to then gain access into other cloud resources, and then we're making those detections right alongside our instant response when we're seeing any new TTPs. So that those
Yeah.
are of course tactics, techniques, and procedures for anybody that is listening in on our podcast.
Yeah. No, for sure. And the fact that you're seeing these in the wild and it's not rare to see this type of attack, makes me think we probably need to share some advice. So as an individual or as an organization, what are some steps that can be taken to, help mitigate these?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the best steps to really mitigate this is to implement phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication. Typically, what we see for those are devices such as YubiKeys.
Mm.
Also using Microsoft Authenticator is much better, we find, than using like SMS, the whole 6-digit text code. Main reason for that is we've seen it in the past. Somebody could go ahead and take somebody's mobile phone number, call up AT&T, call up Verizon, do a social engineer attack on them and say, hey, can you reroute my SMS messages to this? Okay, well now if they, all they've got to do is get your password or get some way into your account. And now that 6-digit code goes to the threat actor. There's also there's SIM cloning as well that we've
Hmm.
seen used in attacks. So now all that somebody needs is just to go ahead and clone a SIM. They're going to get those same 6-digit codes there to that phone as well. So to the end user, they're just like, oh wow, I got another 6-digit code, and they don't do anything with it. But then the bad guy also has that, and now they're doing an actual full login. So those 6 digits that get texted to a phone number are a lot less secure than using something like Microsoft's Authenticator app or definitely using a YubiKey. We really see that YubiKeys are quite well,
Mm.
as well leveraging something like Okta. So being able to implement SSO is quite nice, and then also adopting some of those zero trust types of mindsets or more so policies. So for example, keeping sessions down to a minimal level that
Yeah.
doesn't really hinder your business from operating, but makes it much more difficult for a threat actor to persist their activities that they would go ahead and be performing. And of course, the most important thing is identification of the threat or the attack. And that's really where Mitiga shines. I think the brightest is that we're always on top of anything that's going on inside of somebody's cloud. All the logs, any logs that you can really think of. We really cater around bringing in the full scope or the full picture of all of what's going on in anybody's cloud environment, and that's where we have those detections to immediately identify like, hey, you just suddenly had one of your users that's just now sent out requests from Russia or even requests from the United States,
Yeah.
but from a totally different user agent. And we have all sorts of different detection methodologies where we're detecting anything from user agents, all the way through to we look at 30 days, at least 30 days of normal behaviors. So we baseline it. And then we're leveraging like latest and greatest tooling as well, such as AI. And I know a lot of people hear AI and they're just like, oh, it's snake oil. But I really can attest to the fact that the way we are leveraging AI is very sound. It makes a lot of sense, and it's very beneficial to
Yeah.
our instant response team while we're using it.
Yeah. No, yeah, a couple of things there I wanted to unpack. I guess we'll start at the end and then work back to the front. But you're right. You've got there's so much data that's being pulled into Mitiga, and it stores upwards of 1,000 days per customer. But what I really like is how anything pretty much can be an entity. Could be a user's email address, could be an IP address, could be an EC2 instance, could be a role. And the way it gets cross correlated across multi-cloud identity controls, SaaS applications, I think it's really unique. So thanks for sharing that. But the other thing you're mentioning the Microsoft notifications and using Authenticator. Man, I got to tell you, when Microsoft sort of killed the push notifications, I thought that was such a smart idea. And I wish all multi-factor, when we say multi, we really mean two-factor usually, but I'm glad they got rid of that because there's so many attacks that are dependent on push fatigue. Like you're going to say, no, no, no. And eventually, the
Yeah.
most technical, the most security savvy person is going to fine, yes, right? There must be something going on. This is an attack. I've gotten like 100 of these in a row and I just want to make it stop. And it was really simple, right? Just give me a little 2-digit code, for example, and 12. Okay, type it in. I'm good to go. So that to me it wasn't a huge change, but I think it really put a thorn in the side of attackers. And from a user perspective, it's not that much harder, right? Either I say accept or I type in 12. All right, great. So it's an easy thing. So yeah, I think that's great. So let me ask you this. So I think those are great perspectives in sort of mitigating the threat. But if I'm a user and we've all got a browser, is there any way for me to be able to tell that my browser or the device it's on has actually been compromised related to this type of attack?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things that we would check for is to see if there's any modifications to somebody's basically any of the application data files for each browser. So for example, inside of Firefox and inside of Chrome, extensions are stored onto the disk, basically in JavaScript type files. So all of it is, usually a mix between JavaScript and any types of additional resource files to, explain like what is that extension. For example, like JSON is also often used. And with that being said, when somebody does install a new extension, there would be some file writes to disk inside of those application data folders. So we can go ahead and look at that information, in the case of looking at endpoint information. Additionally, as well, there's ways to monitor your entire enterprise. Like, for example, with Google Chrome, there's like Google Chrome Enterprise that allows you to monitor all of your environment Google Chrome installs and also do enforcements, with
Mm.
setting up policies. So that's one other great recommendation as well, is just locking down what browser extensions are able to be installed, because if nobody can go just install the random silly app, or more so Chrome extension, then it's less likely that they're going to go get that wrong Google Chrome extension that does go ahead and compromise their ultimately their browser and then allow for compromise of an account. That said, there are supply chain attacks, and not too long ago we did see attacks basically in legitimate Chrome extensions. Although the Chrome extension owner accounts were phished, and then those Chrome extensions had updates pushed through that ultimately allowed for people to do information gathering or information stealing. So that's quite a wild scenario, because now it's more so not just, hey, don't install new bad extensions, but the extensions that you already trust and already have installed,
Yeah.
that those could go ahead and be an entryway if that extension owner gets their account phished or compromised in some way. And
Mm.
now that already pre-installed extension could go ahead and serve as an entry vector. And all that takes is for a threat actor to go ahead and just push an update to an existing Chrome extension that they've, stolen access or gotten access into. And now you're at the same situation of now allowing for a browser in the middle attack by that trusted extension that's already installed, getting sessions, getting passwords typed, etc. So that's definitely a reality or a risk, because we already saw that I think it impacted. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I know at one point the number was over 800,000. So almost a million different users out in the world were impacted by this. So as you can imagine, that could happen at any company where we're just like, okay, we have this list of extensions we trust, and any one of those extensions, potentially could go ahead and get compromised and serve as a
Yeah.
way in.
It is sort of emblematic of like the SaaS mesh and how you see all these different SaaS applications linked together. So I'm a developer, I'm on GitHub, I've got my repository with a bunch of stuff, and hey, I want to try this other tool. And I integrate it with my GitHub account, which might have my company's source code on it, let's say, for example. And because I want to do it quick and easy, I'm using my administrative privileges with it. So it's got access to that. And then I forget about it and I'm going off my day, my week, my month, but it's still connected. And maybe that solution gets compromised. And then the attackers go, oh, hey, look what we have connection to. Oh, and now we have connection to their source code. So it's really those third-party bits and pieces that you have plugged in. It doesn't have to be in some complex SaaS application. Like you said, it can just be a plugin in your browser as well. You mentioned something before about AI and how we use it. And of course, we have, our AI insights capability that sort of mimic what an analyst would do and how they triage and go through alerts and go through the logs and the telemetry and kind of bring it all together, which is fantastic. And we also have legacy stuff. I guess you call it legacy nowadays for the machine learning, but anomaly detection, pattern discovery, volumetric analysis, temporal analysis, all that types of things. I think the two still go hand in hand. And that's great. It's great that security companies like Mitiga, we have that. But we're not the only ones that have access to AI, for example, right? So I'm wondering from, as we kind of wrap things up, this last question here for browser in the middle attacks and how they're evolving in this now world of easily accessible AI, I guess we'll call it, and complex web technologies. What are you seeing as like the next step, or maybe the next step as they're maybe taking advantage of this?
Yeah, for sure. So is that question, is that in regards to the AI insights and how we could, look at that, or, how is that?
Actually, not from our side, but I'm just wondering from the attacker side, how are they
Oh,
able
I
to
see.
leverage AI and more complex web technologies to
Okay,
to kind of to kind of make browser in the middle a more advanced attack technique?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect question, and we do see threat actors, keeping up with the latest tech. And in fact, in some cases, threat actors seem to pick up technology faster sometimes than some so some of our competitors. Not bashing on any competitors, but yeah, we definitely see that threat actors are very quick to adapt to the changing technology, because I mean, at the end of the day, if there is security advancements blocking them, they're just not successful. And if they're not successful, then they don't feel like they're doing a good job. So, these threat actors are very adaptive to making sure that they overcome, security tooling. So with that being said, they're using AI to circumvent detections with like phishing types of detection utilities. So that could look like a threat actor is sending out phishing emails to your 500 users, but every single email has a different subject. It has a different body. So now when you're going in and you're just like, oh, cool, we're just gonna like blow away this email by the subject line, or we're gonna blow away this email by the body content, or the email. Well, they're also switching up email addresses. So now you have 500 different emails that are all slightly different, in terms of
Yeah.
their overall like capability to be AI generated. So now they're using this, AI generation capability to sound more realistic. The other thing too is you'll also often find it where threat actors in the past have had like glitches in their language understanding of English. Like English is hard if that's not your native language, and so there would be very simple the language wording issues where you're just immediately like, nobody says like, just reset your password um, immediately now or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so things like that can be
It's
thrown
not the
into
days
AI.
of the Nigerian prince phishing
Exactly. Yeah.
attacks, right? Yeah, yeah, that were
Yeah,
pretty.
exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
this
yeah,
prince has really poor grammar.
exactly. Yeah. Or grandma broke her leg, she needs money. Or you know, little Timmy broke his leg. Please, grandma, send money or something. You know, things like that. So yeah,
Yeah,
they can now leverage AI though to make the stories seem a lot more realistic instead of like you said, it's just it's all the same story of the Nigerian prince. Like there's infinite different possibilities now because they can take that Nigerian prince scenario and rotate it, switch it up so many different ways to make it less unbelievable even. So
yeah,
it's really it's kind of mind blowing that they don't even have to know how to speak English to leverage this because AI models and AI utilities are made so publicly available with any types of languages being supported with them. So now they can use their own native language to generate things in the English language and then go
yeah,
ahead and adopt those out. So it really it empowers them to go ahead and do this also without having to use their own resources because so many different AI tools are free. I mean, anybody can go get a Google Gemini account or Claude or anything. Nothing's stopping them, and they're not limited by resources now because all of that processing is happening in the cloud for free. So, I mean,
yeah,
it really empowers anybody to go ahead and really carry out more complicated or more so more complex attacks than in the past of it just being very static where each email subject line and body is totally the same. They can also generate JavaScript as well to go ahead and make these extensions that we mentioned. So for example, a lot of these these extensions are primarily written, they're JavaScript driven. So all you have to do is ask, for example, Claude or any AI, hey, can you help me make a browser extension? And then start asking it questions about, okay, well, now can it read the session information from M365? And there you go. Like sure enough, a lot of these AI models are able to understand exactly what is trying to be done. Some of them do have some ethics guardrails built in to kind of help to shut that down and mitigate that for the most part. But then you just say, well, I'm making my own app and I want to do it with blah blah.com. Well, now you just take the blah blah.com stuff and switch it
yeah,
back on over to, Microsoft. You get the concept. So that
yeah,
makes it very simple for these types of attacks to really be carried out. So to answer your question there, AI is extremely empowering to threat actors, and it's really the cat and mouse of security versus the not the anti-security folks, and it's really just a matter of everybody keeping up, both on the good and bad
yeah.
side.
Yeah, it seems to me like it's that question of volume and velocity and variety. And the AI really it could potentially put the advantage in the hands of the attackers. And that's what security has been like forever. It's always been, can defense outrun offense? Offense comes up with a
Exactly.
new play, defense has to figure out how to do that. Defense can try to be proactive, but usually they don't invest in it until something happens where
Exactly.
there's a legitimate reason. So there's always this balance, but I think the speed at which we'll see it happen and the volume at which we'll see it happen and the variety that we see, AI is going to really change that quite a bit. And I'm wondering, I mean, it just makes sense to me that let's take phishing off the table and let's just talk specifically about spear phishing. Like I'm going after specific whales. I'm going after the C-suite of this company. And I'm using AI to help me automate the process of scraping information so I can make that spear phishing email to say, hey, Bob, I just got a great picture of your daughter scoring a goal at the last soccer game or whatever. What dad that has a daughter that plays soccer isn't going to click on that? Of course, he wants to see the picture of his daughter scoring a goal at the soccer game, right? To be those very specific things that used to take time. You had to do some research and go to their social media and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And maybe I can get a few people done a day, but now maybe I can do hundreds of folks in an hour, right? So, or less, right? So to me, I think that's going to be really powerful as these become more personalized, right? And I think that might be one of the power plays for AI. Even the most security sophisticated person, it might be able to trick them because it isn't that Nigerian prince thing from decades ago, right? It's something very, very specific to you. So, yeah, yeah, it's a brave new world. And
It is.
I'm glad we've got people like you on the back end that are doing this type of analysis and investigation and response. Using solutions like Mitiga, of course, in order to help aid in that. But it really comes down to having really smart people, augmented with hopefully really great technology. So, Austin, thank you so much for sharing. I think this whole browser in the middle thing was really interesting. And if folks would like to read a little bit more about this and kind of get into the technical bits and bytes of it, where can they go? Where can they find some more information?
Yeah, yeah. So we have a really wonderful Mitiga blog, and on our Mitiga blog, it's quite simple to go ahead and search through it. Basically, to go ahead and look specifically at this, just searching up browser in the middle, right on our website, just the Mitiga website. It's very simple to go ahead and get there. I, for example, love going to our website just to read about our latest blog. So definitely, it's a great place to check out wonderful resources. To go ahead and get there, you would just go to mitiga.io and then hover resources and click down onto blog. And you'll be able to read to your heart's content. There's really all sorts of cool stuff that we're putting out very routinely. To go ahead and get to the one that Brian's mentioned, you would just go ahead and, as mentioned, just search for browser in the middle, and you'll go ahead and find it there.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Austin, this was great. Wonderful information. Very insightful. You're a really smart guy. Thanks so much for being on Mitiga Mic, and hopefully we can have you back soon.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I think Mitiga Mike is really awesome, and we've got some exciting content planned.